The parking lot outside the Capitol building was crowded with pristine, gleaming cars that the Whitney truck, caked in dust and mud, stood out next to like a sore thumb. Deep in the heart of the city, Scott Whitney felt uncomfortable. This was towny country, and somewhere that felt alien and uncomfortable. There were business-suited yuppies everywhere, it seemed, and almost instinctively, Scott brushed down his suit and loose tie to try and fit in a bit better. But who was he kidding? He'd never fit in here. It wasn't his place. Resolutely, like a man on a mission, he strode towards the great grey cement edifice that was the seat of government for the state. Under the imposing great tower, and in through the tall doors, taking another breath as another threshold was crossed. The interior of this great place was tall, but the dark wood panelling nonetheless made it feel cramped and claustrophobic. A stairwell on the far side led upwards, while crowds of people, no doubt on official business of some sort, milled around, crisscrossing the floor in droves. Scott Whitney walked over into the centre of the room, until he stood on the central point of the great state seal emblazoned on the middle of the marble floor. Well worn, scuffed a little, but resplendent and authoritative. The reception desk was busy, but that didn't matter. Scott didn't have an appointment to see the governor. That was who he intended to see. Might as well go right to the top if he wasn't going to go anywhere, right? The great stairs swooshed up the curved walls of the building, and Scott followed them up, higher and higher, for what seemed like an eternity. It felt like climbing a mountain, but without any complaint from Scott, ascended 20 stories right to the top. People whizzed by in elevators, but that was of no consequence to the beleaguered farmer. This was just part of his fight against transition, and if he ended up getting a hernia climbing up all these steps, every concrete treat sending pins through his calves, then so be it. Worth it to get his farm back and give his family some kind of future. The governor's office soon beckoned right at the top of the building. A great double-wood door that faced the landing of the stairs and gave an imposing, better than you aura to anyone who knew they shouldn't be here. But it was deserted, the sounds of the busybodies downstairs muffled almost into song by the walls, carpets, and sheer volume of air from down there to up here. One of the doors into the governor's complex creaked loudly, revealing an intermediary area. A personal assistant's desk lay abandoned and unmanned, but not for long, presumably. There were papers still messily strewn on the desk, and the glowing personal computer terminal whirred with existence. But more voices, ones Scott Whitney didn't place downstairs, could be heard. These were much nearer, on the other side of a door on the opposite wall of this waiting room, past the door labelled Governor. Creeping up, Scott pressed his ear to the thick door. It rattled a little in its mountings, and he took a sharp intake of breath. Hopefully this didn't attract the attention of whoever was on the other side. It didn't. The sound of hearty, middle-aged men laughing bellowed, and would have easily drowned the rumbling rattle of the door for a split second. "Ah, Penrose," one voice chuckled, a voice Scott found oddly and ominously familiar. "Where do you get this fine drink? Did you let a distillery plant itself wherever it fancied, as long as you were kept in liquor?" Another voice, beefy and authoritative, slurped and whinnied. "Ashton, you know as well as any other greedy businessman, if you throw enough money or drink my way, you can do whatever you damn well like." Ashton? Oh, God, Scott thought, gasping in disbelief. This could only be Ashton Kleinman, Transition CEO. He listened on, intently, not missing a word. "I've had a few of the marsh flies complaining, though, saying transition's poisoning the land, ruining their futures, usual rural crap," Ashton said smugly, sneering at those tiny moths that dared question him. "Well, is it?" the Governor Penrose Colton asked pointedly. "Well, maybe, but don't worry, I'm sure we can come to an arrangement, one beneficial to both our causes, where any environmental report is, say, mysteriously lost." A latch clicked, and a second later, the Governor gasped again. "Oh, Jesus!" Kleinman snorted in agreement. "I think we have a deal then, Governor." The two men then began laughing like sewers once more, but this was a repugnant sound. Scott couldn't listen to any more. It was just too painful. He was wasting his time. But then, as his mind faced certain defeat, he remembered the personal assistant's desk. Maybe, just maybe, he could find some way to incriminate these two. Scouting around for the sound of high heels on wood floor, Scott rifled through the desk before looking at the surface by the computer keyboard. A tape reel system. Connected to the assistant's intercom. Wires led off and into the desk and down the wall with the office. The tape had been left running too. Electrical impulses conveying a ton of immediate thoughts coursed like an instant through Scott's mind. Who was the previous owner of this office? Richard Nixon? Panting with excitement and disbelief, Scott rewound the tape for a few seconds and hit the play button with a clunk. "I think we have a deal then, Governor." Kleinman's voice echoed, distorted by tape hiss, but no doubt unmistakable. Almost immediately, the tape found its way into Scott Whitney's pocket, and feeling elated, he headed back. But when he returned, triumphant at his discovery, the farm was empty, the front door left open. No one was home, and the house had an eerie, lifeless feel to it. Until he discovered the note on the kitchen draining board. "I'm sorry." The note crumpled lightly in Scott's hand as he took in what it meant. Obviously some compulsion had driven his wife to flee. But fleeing from what? Just this morning there was a real hope, albeit a bit misplaced, that all this business could be settled and life would resume again. Even though this hadn't been achieved, something different had, and surely Brienne was strong enough, nay, their entire marriage was strong enough to see this through. Plodding up the stairs, the cold air of the house rustled through the tired farmer's hair and against his glistening, dewy eyeballs. Across the landing were two open doors, one for the marital bedroom, the closets left open and stripped, presumably from when the contents were bundled into cases and taken out in a hurry, and Elliot's bedroom. This hurt the most. His precious son. His world, really. Gone. And all real worldly trace of him, too, disappeared. The reason for their leaving, Scott knew not. Instead, he sat on the edge of his son's little bed. It was cold, and would never be warm again, he thought. And for the first time since this whole crisis unfolded in an instant, Scott Whitney cried.